This episode of the Beauty Industry podcast was brought to you by Timely, the world's smartest appointment booking software helping beauty and wellness businesses better manage their time, sanity, and ability to generate revenue. Hello and welcome to the Beauty Industry podcast, your online support community for the professional beauty industry. I am your host, founding director of Beauty Industry, Tamara Reid. Here we are closing the competitive gap and speaking your language. This is a platform created and dedicated to the professional beauty industry, valuing community over competition. We serve to help connect you with inspiration from industry experts, expand your knowledge through educational pieces, and bring you the latest in product and technology innovation. This is Beauty Industry. Today my guest is Jazz Pampling. Jazz is a Sydney-based eyebrow artist and educator who is redefining the ways in which women shape their brows with an extensive A-list clientele, including Paula Abdul, Naomi Watts, Jessica Mauboy, Samantha Harris, and Network 10's Natarsha. A regular at Virgin Australia Melbourne Fashion Festival for the past 9 years working as a brow and makeup artist, Jazz is regularly asked to speak at beauty expos around Australia and New Zealand on the theory of brow shaping, which I have no doubt you'll recognise her face, or rather her lush curly hair, behind the camera as their roving reporter. Jazz and I are pretty much cut from the same cloth in terms of deep diving in our chat today, and we find ourselves going down the rabbit hole of psychology, mindset, and human behaviour super early on in this conversation, where Jazz speaks openly about comparison and imposter syndrome, as well as the reality of being a business owner. You'll love this episode. Here's Jazz and I for Beauty Industry. Jazz, welcome to the Beauty Industry podcast.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for spending the morning with me. We have, as always, I think I say this to every single guest we have, but you have been so heavily requested by our audience. I am so excited to facilitate this chat with you today.
Really? I didn't know. That's amazing.
Lots of love.
Yeah, I'm feeling the love. I'm feeling the love from a distance.
So, Jazz, we start by asking our guest where and how and why they entered into the beauty industry.
Completely and randomly by chance. I was working in hospitality and then I needed to get out of hospitality because I was just done. And I thought, I'll go and do film and television. Why not? So I went and did a film and television course. And we were doing like film and television, sorry, not film and what do we call it? Student films. We were doing student films. They were terrible. And we needed a makeup artist for those films. And so I thought, okay, I'll go and do makeup, not realizing that actually there's a lot of makeup artists who would love to work and would happily build a portfolio on student films. Makeup led me to brows, and then brows randomly led me to running my own business. And it was completely, I love that it led me down that path, but each of those little jobs has helped me be a better brow artist, really. So that's kind of how it happened.
Wow. Okay. So you were starting to be the makeup artist on the shoots and then thought somebody else could be more specialist in this area. And then how did the brows come out of that?
I was working as a makeup artist, and a friend of mine went to do a class with Ray Morris, and it was a 10-day masterclass. It was $4,000. I did not have $4,000, but my friend did, and I went and sat in as her face model. I'm not a model, but it was 10 days of essentially I was learning for free. And every day Ray spoke about eyebrows, and she just said, I will not look at your work if the brow is not complete. And I was like, oh, that's pretty serious. So I thought I'll go and learn about brows for 6 months and then come back to makeup, and then just had a bit of a knack for brows. I loved the before and after. And I came in at a time where brows were just on the cusp of taking off, and my style of brow was just on the cusp of taking off as well.
Interesting. It's interesting that, there were so many people in that class But you sat there and went, hang on, she's repeating this, repeating this, repeating this about the brows. Do you think that was because you were sitting in and getting your makeup done, therefore maybe you were listening more rather than the people who were trying to do the makeup?
Yes, that is very possible. Actually, I hadn't considered that before. There was theory at the beginning of the class, but yes, I imagine the makeup artists were there. They did theory and then they did hands-on. And once you're hands-on, you're so focused on doing an amazing job that sometimes background information disappears. It's a very good point, actually.
So you didn't go back into the makeup, you started perfecting the brows then from there. Yeah,
Yes.
incredible. And so you said there you've got like a little signature style, or you found that. How did you find that?
I found that, I guess, because definitely from Ray's class, she was all about fuller brows, more natural. She really taught me the basics of fuller brows help us look younger. They add years to the face. We were definitely coming out of the 90s where there was this whole thin, super arched brow, and we started to realize that in terms of longevity, the face doesn't hold that brow shape very well. As we age, the eye socket widens, the eyeball drops back, the muscle on the bone of the brow drops down. And so when you have a brow that arches up and over that muscle that drops, it's like putting a big sign on your face that says, hey, I'm actually 10 years older than I really am. It's always a really good look. But I guess, so Ray was really all about that. And as I was doing brow shaping, I was sort of finding that women were looking for a fuller brow, and I was educating in that. And yeah, so I guess fuller, natural brows, low maintenance is where my signature came in. And Ray was sort of the catalyst for that, I would say.
Incredible. And so how did you go from that day thinking, okay, there's a brow business here. I've now kind of found my pathway. Where did you start the business, and kind of how did you go along that more brow perfectionist before you can kind of become the expertise that you are now?
I did not plan on having a business. I was just like, I don't know, winging it on a hope and a prayer. Sometimes I wonder if I knew what I understand about business now, would I have gone into it for myself? I think the answer is still yes. I'm not like, I don't play well with others. I like having I like having my own schedule and doing things my way, even if it means it takes me longer to get it done. But I think I did that class and then I went and studied a waxing certificate. So I'm a qualified makeup artist. I'm a qualified hairdresser, but I would never say I'm a hairdresser. Just because you've got the TAFE certificate doesn't mean you are. And I did a waxing certificate. So those three things kind of came together really nicely. And then I went and worked for a company shaping brows for about a year. And things like with that company didn't end particularly as well as I would have liked. And I kind of went back into hospitality straight after working for them for a year. And I was like, oh, okay. But all of my makeup friends that I'd made friends with in that year, they were like, oh, no, can you do my brow still? Just come to my home. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, no worries. So I would drive to clients' places and the word kind of spread and it built from there. And over the course of about 3 years, I'd built this client base while still doing hospitality. I actually don't know how I did that many hours. And the next thing I knew, I kind of had a business in brows that supported me. And so I was like, okay, this is fun. I enjoy this. And that's kind of how it happened. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
I don't know if that answers the question.
Absolutely. I love finding out kind of how people get to the place that they are today, right?
Yeah.
Because it's very easy for us to look at people in the industry and go, oh my goodness, that's incredible. But it's like, how did you actually get there? You know, beyond all the glossy stuff that we see
Yes.
on social media, because that's the thing that people ask me the most is like, but how did you go into education? But how did you become a manager from a therapist? And I think in our industry more so, it's like all of those kind of bridging pathways from manager into owner or from owner into educator, like they aren't really discussed. So I really like finding out those answers.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it was just kind of, I understand. It was just a progression. I just did the things that I liked, that I enjoyed, and it flowed from there. I didn't actively chase it, which is not to say I didn't work hard. I was doing crazy long hours driving all over Sydney. And then I would finish and go and do a bar job until 2 o'clock in the morning, and then get up at 6 and start driving to clients. But yeah, it was a natural progression. And that's the same with education. I had made friends with makeup artists. I was really great friends with Ray Morris, which I was just like, oh my God, I'm friends with my mentor. That's so weird. And she put me forward for education at Sydney Beauty Expo. And they were kind of like, if you can't do this, we're going to let this go, because we've tried to have this education 3 times now and it has failed. So if you can't do it, we're just going to accept that brow education at the expos isn't possible.
Right. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, no pressure, right? So I spent 6 months putting a course together for only 2 hours, and actually it went really well, and I continued educating thereafter. Again, I didn't chase education. It just kind of came my way.
Yes. What I really appreciate about your kind of rise to fame, if you will, is that, you know, the 3 years and the late nights and the hospitality stuff that I'm sure a lot of people don't perhaps know about now. And the fact that you didn't just go, oh, I'm good at brows, I can do this, I'm just going to go open a salon tomorrow. Like, this sounds like there was a lot of hard work and tenacity. And I guess you probably found your passion in that, because you wouldn't have stuck at it and all of the hours and the long nights if you weren't passionate about that.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I think that's very well said. And I do think I've seen businesses, salons open in Sydney, and they get the premium corner spot and they deck it out, and it must cost them like $1 million sometimes. And then I see a few months later that they're closed. And I often wonder, I'm like, did you open because you had the client base already? Or did you think because you opened on the corner in an affluent area that people would just come and see you? But don't think Sydney works like that.
No, absolutely not. And that's really interesting, actually, because there was a comment in our Facebook group just last week which said, you know, I know that we shouldn't compare ourselves, but I am comparing myself because I've opened this space and everyone else is busier than me and I'm not busy. And, you know, this community member had only been 6 months into her business. And I said exactly that. I said, look, they may be so busy, but in 100 grand of debt, or, you know, have the worst team culture, or be fighting with their husband every single night. Like, we can't be comparing.
So well said. You've just got to, like, I'm aware of the people in my industry, but I'm not making decisions based on what they're doing.
Did you ever have that kind of imposter feeling where you felt like the brows aren't good enough, or my client's not going to like the brows, or did I do a good enough job on that set, or anything like that?
I still have imposter syndrome. Is that what we're calling it today?
Yes.
I still get it. I'm still like, I'm terrible at my job. Everyone's going to figure it out. I'm just waiting for someone to walk in the door and be like, busted, we know you suck at what you do. Look, I'm getting better with that. It depends. I guess for me personally, imposter syndrome taps into that part of me that doesn't believe I'm good at anything, or that I'm worthy of any of that stuff. And that goes into a whole therapy session that, you know, we don't have time for. But as time goes by, I'm learning to let that go. And it's funny, if I'm with a client and I feel that bubble up inside me, it's very possible, and more often than not, there's something within that client that has triggered something within myself. And if I can grab it in time and register that it's actually got nothing to do with my work and there's an emotional trigger happening, I can normally calm myself down to look at the brow and go, I've actually done an amazing job. And if they don't see that, I'm never going to make them happy. But it's a process.
Yes. It sounds like you're quite good at catching yourself there, because I think a lot of us don't have that ability to catch ourselves, and we're just like da, 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 all of the thoughts in our heads, and then we're like, I did a shit job, I'm so crap at this. But it sounds like you've done quite a lot of personal development, I guess.
I am a huge, huge fan of therapy, and I do it all the time. I do it very regularly. If for no other reason beyond whatever my own life has been in this world. So if you're a psychologist, a paid psychologist, counselor, whoever, there's actually a requirement within that industry that they go and see regular counselors for all the people that they have to deal with, and the sadness and the grief and the terrible stories that they hear. And I hear that sadness and grief in my own job, and I'm not qualified to hear it. So I take it somewhere and help to deal with it and unload it. And in that process, I learn how I'm reacting to my clients and their stories and their own stuff. Big fan of therapy. Everyone should do it.
That's actually huge there. Perhaps we should lobby to someone somewhere to get
Yeah.
some kind of psychology training in beauty schools, because I think what you're saying is 100% true. And as beauty therapist, I mean, whether you do brows or lashes or whatever you do, you are so physically touch-wise connected with the client. I mean, it's not just sitting in a chair and she's over here and we're doing therapy. It's so much more than that. So that should actually be quite a requirement we do.
Oh my God, I think that is a great idea. Therapy in like psychology in your TAFE, for you, not just for your clients, but looking after your own mental health when clients tell you terrible stories. Because I was at one of the hair awards a few years ago, and they said that the hairdresser will hear about domestic violence in the house from their client before anyone else in that person's life ever hears or knows about it. And I think beauty would be very similar.
Well, on the flip side of that, the beauty therapist would see, not just hear it.
Well said.
Huge. We're going down a rabbit hole, aren't we?
Yeah. Sorry, we go deep quickly. There's no surface level stuff here.
We did. I love it. I love it. I do want to go back to you kind of your personal brand, because you are like quite well known in the celebrity world for the brows these days. How did you get to a point after that kind of 3 years of perfecting the craft to actually create and develop your own personal brand where people of that kind of status were coming to you and wanting your services?
I don't want to be the person that says it just happened by accident, because here's the thing, it never happens by accident. You actually put in place a bunch of stuff that subconsciously you don't even realize you're doing. So if I really think about what I did at that time to bring celebrities into my workspace, I think consultation is huge. Making sure that the client feels heard is the most important part of my job. Particularly for brow shaping, the industry for many years until recently understood that you go in, you get your brow waxed, you walk out, it was 15 minutes of your life. There's no real chat per se. So it's an hour with me always. I never compromise on that time. Clients learn to speak to me and communicate with me. Initially, some people don't even know how to do it. They've not quite found their brow language. They're like, I don't know. What do you mean? Just do the brow. I'm like, oh crap. So I think I set standards in place for my work. Consultation was really important. Beautiful, amazing work was really important. Hearing that the client wasn't like, maybe if I didn't nail something, instead of taking it personally, which is really hard not to do, it was like, okay, hang on, she didn't quite love that color, or she didn't quite think the tail was right, or whatever it was. Hearing that, processing it, and letting them know that I heard it and we won't do that again. And continuity, because it's the same person every single time that does their brow. So I think in a bigger business that can be hard because you've got so many staff, but continuity I think is key. And so celebrities kind of heard through their makeup artists, who were my friends, that this Jazz girl is doing good work.
After the break, Jazz shares with us the importance of client communication, how she shifted the client's perspective around 1 hour brow appointments, and so much more. But first, a word from today's beauty partner. Community, you know all too well how pro I am about all things online booking and working smarter, not harder in 2020, and our friends at Timely help you to do just that. Timely is a powerful booking and business management software for businesses of any size and ambition. Designed to help you save hours on admin, deliver exceptional client experience, establish a much loved brand, and grow your revenue with over 500 software updates every year, Timely is always on a mission to help you get the best from your business. Timely works beautifully with Tyro, Xero, QuickBooks, MailChimp, Square, Google Calendar, and more. So why not join over 40,000 global Timely customers today? If you've been thinking about making the switch from pen and paper or want to test a new salon software system, visit www.gettimely.com to start a free 14-day trial. Thank you so much to the team at Timely for making this episode possible. And now, back to Jazz. I love it because I constantly say on this podcast, when we're doing consultations, we need to listen to hear, not listen to respond. And I think a lot of us sit there as therapists and we hear our client going, dehydrated, I'm flaky, I'm having 3 coffees, I'm having 1 glass of water and I'm wine on the weekend and I'm stressed. And we're like so ready to tell them that they need hyaluronic acid and a microdermabrasion, you know? And it's kind of like, okay, listen to who your client is. Why is she stressed? Why is she having 3 coffees a day? Like, is she sleeping? What kind of environment is she in? Why is she so dehydrated? You know, and it's about really listening to actually hear those answers rather than just ready to sell her. And it really is a sell. It's not a prescription that way, which I really love about you. But also as well, it's clearly that kind of word of mouth that people want to be listened to.
Yes, I think so. I think you're a mum at home, you're with children all day, or you're a woman in the office, you're with people all day, you've got ideas, maybe they don't get heard, maybe the children aren't listening, maybe your husband isn't listening. And then you come to a space where you've made the decision to look after yourself for, in my case, an hour. And you've never, like in your whole week, this is your 1 hour to look after yourself. And I think being heard in that moment, and people, like, maybe someone's saying something to you and you're like, that makes no sense. What do you mean her tail like grows? Tails don't do that. It's actually not that they are saying the wrong thing. They're just not communicating it in a way that you register. And so hearing people is really important. I think
Yes.
Key.
Love it. Did you ever have to change clients' mindset because they have come from that 15-minute quick in and out, take a number appointment to being there for an hour on brows?
Every now and then, yes. There's someone who'll come in and I sit down with all my clients when they're new and have a chat with them. And they just kind of keep saying, I just don't know. I've never really thought about it. I just want you to do it. The danger with that that I've learned is that when you just do it, they don't like it. And so it's about changing how I communicate and changing the question. So instead of going, what do you want? What do you like? Who's your favorite celebrity? You can flip it and go, what do you hate? What have other therapists done that you didn't like? Learn from other therapists' mistakes. It's not that they made mistakes as such. They just didn't know that that person didn't want that. And is there a celebrity whose brows you hate? So I just had to reframe my questions to get the information out of them that I need so that I still have an understanding of what they want.
Yeah, well, it's almost to be intuitive as well in that, and very intellectually smart actually, because you're hearing one thing and you're like, okay, what does this sentence actually mean? It could mean 5 other different things, but I love that you're taking the time to kind of think about that and not just letting your client kind of push you, because some clients can be quite direct and almost bully, and they're like, look, lady, I just want you to do my brows, you know? So I love that you're like, no, I'm going to ask the questions. If I don't get an answer one way, I'm going to ask it another.
Yeah. And you just, like when someone is like really like, blah, 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 I don't like, just do it, blah, blah, blah. All right, get them on the bed, cleanse their skin, do a little brush up of the brows, and then just casually sneak questions in. and they start to relax, and they don't feel, sometimes they can feel quite confronted with a scenario that they're not used to. They're like, I just get in the bed. This is how it's done. Don't make changes in my life, even though technically I came to you because I see that you do things differently.
Yes, yes. And I want to talk about that because you refer to a lot about your signature kind of brow theory. Can you explain for people who haven't heard that? What is your signature brow theory?
Oh gosh. My signature brow theory, I guess, is there's no right or wrong way to do brows. I don't, like, when I teach my classes, my goal is to teach everyone all the hair removal techniques and, you know, trimming and tweezing and whatever, and how to break the brow down and look at it in different parts, and then apply what you think is beautiful to another person's face. So I guess one could argue that my signature brow theory is bold brows that are natural and fluffy. However, I've got plenty of clients that I don't do that to because they're like, no, that's not what I want. So yeah, I guess my signature brow theory is for education is about finding for yourself as an artist what you think is beautiful, learning as much as you can about the brow, about how we age, about face shape and brow shape and how they work together, and all those little techniques in trimming and waxing and stuff, and then applying it in the way that you think's best.
Yes.
Is that
Love
the
it.
answer?
Love it.
I
Have
love
you
how I'm
ever,
like, did I answer this? I don't know if I'm answering this.
you're answering all the questions. Have you ever refused to treat anyone's brows?
Ooh. No. There was a woman once when I first started, bless her cotton socks. She literally had, not even exaggerating right now, 7 hairs on each brow. And I was like, I just don't feel right charging you for this service. You don't have any hair. And she was like, no, just do whatever. I'm like, okay. And so I tinted her brows and tinted her lashes, and she was like, oh my God, I love it. Okay. And she came back a few more times, and I remember being really perplexed by that. But you know what? That was just, she loved it. That's what she liked at the time. I think she moved to States and that's why she left. But I haven't said no to anyone. There was a person who was not very kind to me. She was quite rude. And I was just really busy for the rest of my life whenever she needed to book in the kindest way possible. And I was like, I'm just really, you know, I'm so busy. Probably not going to get in for a couple of weeks, but here are some great artists in the industry who will look after you. And it was fine. Maybe she knows what I was doing, maybe she doesn't, but she kind of moved on and it was all fine.
Amazing. How did you know in your career that you had kind of perfected your skills or built them up to a level as such that you wanted to then teach others? Because I think a lot of people, therapists, business owners, they're almost like on that cusp of, I'm ready, but am I ready? And then how do I do that? So when did you kind of start running your own classes and bits and pieces?
Classes fell in my lap. I literally, the Beauty Expo called me and said, hey, will you do this? I was like, yeah, man, sure. Sometimes you just got to jump in. And it's funny, I say all that now, but when if I was to think about a career change right now in my life, the concept of starting again and just jumping in just actually makes me feel tired. So, so for people who are ready to educate but don't know what that looks like or what the next step is, I think you just got to do it. Getting used to talking in front of people takes time. The first time I went up on stage at Beauty Expo, I was so nervous I couldn't hold a pair of tweezers, and I had to make a joke about drinking too much coffee. I don't even drink coffee. I drink tea. I hate coffee. So but as the years have gone by, because I think I've been doing expo stuff for about 8 years now, I'm so, like, I can get on, like I jumped up on stage one year and had no shoes on. Like I just didn't care. I was very calm. And it's the same with all my social media. People are like, oh, you're just so natural on social media. Not to begin with. I was really like a bit of a mess, and now I'm much better, and I can film myself in front of thousands of people and not care what anyone's thinking. I look like some random influencer who thinks she knows everything, and I don't care if that's what they're thinking about me, because I know what I'm doing for my business. So just start, especially if you don't have tons of followers. Now is the time. Get on social media and make the mistakes filming, and then by the time you've got a following, you've already worked out the kinks. And the same if you want to do online tutorials and charge for them. Just start filming so that you can make those mistakes, iron them out, and then create better content as time goes by. Just because you've done a class on tinting doesn't mean you can't revisit that class 6 months, a year, a couple of years later. So I think if you think you're ready, start filming now so you can learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, I think there must be a lot of comparison, definitely, but also a huge fear for people to jump in, because there are so many big businesses who have the perfect logo and the perfect space and this and that. And, you know, there's a lot of procrastination, which I hear in my kind of business owner development sessions, in people going, I know I've got to start and I've got to do the social media, but I want to have the perfect photo. I want to have the perfect video, you know? And I think that was probably, you know, when you started, perhaps, that there wasn't so much pressure on that, because you just started and you were just like, who cares? I'm just going to do it, and it doesn't matter. And I think, as you said, if you don't have as many followers or as many eyes on, actually easier to start that way, versus when you've got a lot of followers, that means you've got a lot of eyes on you. Then if you do stuff up, there's more people watching you make those mistakes. So when people aren't watching, go for it, just start. And then you kind of pick that up and you find that rhythm as you're going.
I completely agree. I think there are days where I don't want to film. And I think the question potentially for some people, not all, that would be worth asking within themselves is, why don't I want to put myself in front of the camera? Putting yourself in front of a camera, video or photography, is really confronting. You feel like you're sharing a part of yourself with the world. And if you aren't ready to share yourself with the world, you will look for any reason to not do it. Because the reality is the mistakes are what people love. That's what makes it real. We live in a world right now where video content that is real sometimes, not always, and will do better than super perfectly edited amazingness. So there are days where I don't want to film, and that's because I'm tired and I just need the world to not see me. I actually haven't done a lot of socials. Right now it's the middle of June, and I've had a really crazy 5 weeks. The 3 weeks leading up to opening the business were like nothing I've ever experienced in my life. And then the last 2 weeks I've been so busy that when I get home, I'm tired and I don't have the space for socials or education or to talk to anyone. So I think thinking within yourself about what it is that's stopping you from stepping in front of a camera could be worth investigating.
Absolutely. And just to take the pressure off you, if you don't want to film that day, don't film. You know, like somebody said to me, oh, Tamara, you always go live in the afternoons. And I said, yeah, that's because I've had a coffee, I've done my eye mask, and I've got makeup on. So I look presentable. Am I going to film or go live at 8 a.m. in the morning? Absolutely not, because I look like a troll. So, you know, it's like sort yourself out, get yourself into that kind of mindset, and then go, okay, I'm feeling good. I've had my lunch. Now I'm going to go. You know, you don't have to say, I'm going to have to set my clock at 8 a.m. and go live straight away. You know, I think you've got to really make it work for you and how you feel. Like if you feel good at 8 a.m., then go crazy at 8 a.m. But if you know that, you know, that afternoon time is when you're on, then you've got to kind of play to your strengths as well.
Yeah. Can I just say quickly?
Yeah.
There is so much noise on the internet, and it does seem daunting to cut through that noise with something that you're creating that you feel like a million other people have created. But here's the thing. No one has created it the way you have. No one sees brows, makeup, whatever, the way you see them. And maybe you have the difference to cut through that noise and build an audience. And I think you won't know until you try.
100%. I absolutely love that. Absolutely. Is there anything you would change about your kind of career timeline that has led you to get here? Would you try and do anything faster, or maybe press pause on anything along the way?
Would I do anything faster? It's funny. I have this conversation with a mentor of mine, and I look at other people in the industry who have staff and multiple locations, and they seem to be killing it. And I'm like, I'm 10 years into brow shaving. This is my 10th year as an artist. And I feel like I should have all these staff and I should have these big things. And my friend / mentor is like, Jazz, you are, it's like tortoise and the hare. And you are tracking exactly the way any small business should be tracking. And if I tried to be bigger and better than I was right now really quickly, I would not have these systems in place to deal with that and the headspace to deal with that. And so in that regard, even though I'm like, oh, I wish I was like this big taking over the country brow artist, no, I'm good. Would I pause anything? No. I guess I would have liked a bit more time for makeup. Like, I love doing makeup. I work every year at Fashion Festival down in Melbourne on the makeup team. But you know what? Like, if I did more of that, I probably would have lost something else. So I don't know that I would change anything. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's all a bit of give and take.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it's about the sleep test. Someone said that to me years ago. If you can't sleep at night, is the decision that you're making worthwhile? And for me personally, having a heap of staff right now would just bring me so much stress, and I'm just not equipped for that right now.
Yes, I really like that. Lyndall Mitchell actually on the podcast said once, when you're faced with a decision, you have to ask yourself, is it a shark or a piece of seaweed? And, you know, it kind of just balances out. Sometimes we think that things are a shark, and then we're like, when it comes closer to us after we have had that night of sleep, it's like, oh, it was just a piece of seaweed. Why are we worrying about it so much?
Very well said. I like that.
Last question there. What's your piece of advice for people who are wanting to crack into the brow industry or be their own business owner? I'm sure it looks more glamorous than it is. But, you know, any kind of last parting words that you'd like to leave our audience with?
Ooh, okay. If you are an employee of a big salon and they're charging $80, $90, $100 for a brow, and you're watching that and you're making $25 an hour, and you're like, I could be making $100 a brow. Okay. Keep in mind that you have holiday pay, sick pay, you should be, superannuation. And when you go home at night, you go home. You see your family and you never think about work until the next day. When you work for yourself, it will be a long time before you remember to pay yourself sick pay and holiday pay, because you're like, look at all this money I have. And then you get sick and you're like, oh, hang on a minute. If you want to go into work for yourself, do it. Trial it, see how you go, and see if you like it. I don't want to ever say anything to anyone that puts them off trying something new. So just be aware that it's long hours and you have to be passionate to your own cause. But you know what? I love working for myself, and I can't imagine working for someone else because I don't like to be told what to do anymore. But if you are someone who maybe stress comes easily to you and you're not willing to put that work in, maybe hold off for a couple more years and work for someone else for a little while longer. Yeah, but don't be afraid to jump in. Sometimes the less you know, the better.
Yes, naivety is sometimes the key to pressing play.
Yeah. Can I just say, like, I know someone like, and they've got the cards and the leaflets and like the website, and there's no clients. And that's like paying to set up a business that doesn't yet exist is not, look, maybe it's a good idea. I never did it that way, but I personally would rather build the client base and then let the logo come and let the business cards come and let everything else come before I start spending money on something that I don't know is even viable.
Very wise. And you know what? You can always make a quick logo on a little, design platform. And then when you are 2-3 years down the track, go spend the $2,000 and get a brand designer to do it.
Yes, those things can always change. I mean, Timely, oh my God, this is so random. Timely changed their logo. So Timely is the booking software that I use for my business. And I remember they did a little logo change just recently, and I was really surprised by that. I was like, oh, but they're so well known. And I'm like, actually, you know what? You can. Businesses can do that. And they can do it at any stage, at any size they ever desire. And actually it gives you a reason to promote yourself further and be like, oh, look at my fabulous new whatever.
Yes.
So yeah. My God, hilarious that I was able to remember that.
I know. Well, actually, there's a lot of brands that tweak little bits and pieces, but perhaps we're so focused on our own thing that we don't exactly notice the little things, like Beauty Industry. Speaking of logos, we started out being like a blush pink color with blacks and whites. And then as I was 2 years in, I was like, I don't want to be blush pink. Everyone's blush pink. And I felt like more mature with the brand as I'm coming into 30. And so we went black, white and a dark blue, so you can just make those subtle tweaks, and not too many people notice that little color shift. So I like what you're saying there. Like, you can, no matter how big or powerful or well-known you are, you can shift and change as per what you want to do and what you want to be seen as.
That's amazing. Can I just say, like, you seem to be talking to a lot of people within the beauty industry. I think that's amazing. Do you find that people are looking for support, and that's why what you're doing is so important? They're looking for help and information?
Yeah, for sure. I think for us, so many people have always come to me and asked me all of the random questions just by way of roles that I've been in. And so that's why we created this, so we can just give them the help. And, there's been a lot of questions recently, especially post-pandemic, about mindset and about how do I charge the prices when people are on JobKeeper and, left and she was upset, and how did I fix that? And, so many questions. So it's been lovely to have a space to be able to facilitate those conversations, and have magical guests like yourself feature and share all of your stories and your wins and the lows and the highs, because privy to this, there was not much else like it unless you went to, a Beauty Expo, which we all hold on to, but it's once a year, so I wanted the conversation not to be just one weekend. I wanted it to be every single day.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I hear a lot of beauty people, I get emails from them calling out for support and community, and they don't know what the next step is. And I think stuff like this can be really helpful. So yeah, it's great.
Absolutely. Well,
thanks for having me.
Oh, you're going to have so many fans because you've been so beautiful and open and honest. And I really appreciate our time together this morning.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I feel very honored. I just feel like I'm just a bit of a dag most of the time, just trying to run a business. So thanks for having me.
I feel the exact same, don't you worry? Thank you so much for tuning into today's conversation with Jazz. So many truths and laugh in our chat today, both of which I am very fond of, and I hope you are too. And how special is the fact that Jazz is so open to sharing with us today. Thank you again to Jazz for being so kind and doing that for us. I know it's easier said than done, but just starting really is the biggest secret sauce to having a business. The longer we wait to start, the more time goes by and the more we wish we had started earlier, and the circle of procrastination continues. If you've loved listening to Jazz's story today, then let her know by taking a screenshot of yourself listening to this episode and tag Jazz over on the socials at Jazz Brow Artist, myself at Tamara Shaw Reid, and of course us at Beauty Industry. Don't forget to subscribe in your podcast app, leave us a little rating and write us a review if you so kindly wish, or let me know who you would like us to speak with next, and we will continue to slide on into their DMs and create these conversations for you. Until next time, stay connected.